Good afternoon and welcome to today's Local Infrastructure Hub session. My name is Michelle Jolin and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Results for America. Our session today is co-hosted by the U.S. Conference of Mayors and is supported by our generous funders, Bloomberg Philanthropies, Balmer Group, Emerson Collective, Ford Foundation, and the Kresge Foundation. Today's session is designed to give you information on the 2023 Safe Streets and Roads for All grant application and give you some examples of previous winning projects. The goal for this session is to better inform your application strategy ahead of the July 10th deadline, which is coming up. Also, we wanted to make sure you knew we developed a database of winning applications for the major bipartisan infrastructure law grants on the Local Infrastructure Local Infrastructure Hub website. You can use this while you're compiling your own applications, and it includes several planning and implementation grants from recipients of last year's round of Safe Streets and Roads for All funding. We know that's important in helping you think about how you're going to prepare your grant application coming forward. So now it's my pleasure to welcome back to the Local Infrastructure Hub, Emily Schwininger, Senior Policy Advisor for Transportation Safety at the Department of Transportation, the U.S. Department of Transportation. Emily joined us in one of our first sessions last year and was one of our popular speakers. So we're thrilled to have her back again to provide an overview of the Safe Streets and Roads for All program. Emily, I'm handing it over to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that warm welcome. Really pleased to be here today to discuss Safe Streets and Roads for All. We're very excited to be in the process of the open notice of funding opportunity for fiscal year 23. This is our second round of 5 years of funding. So I'm just going to jump right in. I have a brief presentation for you all, and then want to leave some time for some Q&A. So as I saw in the chat, please feel free to drop some questions in there. And at the end of the presentation, we'll try and take some of those questions. So again, the Safe Streets and Roads for All program was established by the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. This is a discretionary grant program that is going to provide $5 billion in grant funding over 5 years. And the funding supports regional, local, and tribal initiatives through grants to prevent roadway deaths and serious injuries. This is really our flagship program that supports the National Roadway Safety Strategy, which was adopted at the beginning of 2022, which sets the goal of zero deaths, reducing serious injuries, and adopts the safe system approach. So it's really important and critical, and it's one of the ways that we are investing in local communities to achieve the goals that are set out in the National Roadway Safety Strategy. So let me walk you through a little bit of what it looks like this round. It's slightly different from the first round of funding that was made available. This year, we have 2 buckets for the grants. We have the Planning and Demonstration Grant and the Implementation Grant. This is a decision tree. We've shared this in our previous presentations, our webinars, which I'll point you to towards the end of this presentation. But this is really to help you. The decision tree is to help you understand which grant is correct or right or a better fit for you. So we have the main grant type on one hand, the planning and demonstration, and on the other, the implementation grant. If you're new to safety action planning, or if you have a plan that's either incomplete or not quite ready to make those decisions around construction or implementation of the projects that are in that action plan, then you would look for, that planning and demonstration grant. You would be able to do comprehensive safety action planning through that. You would be able to do supplemental planning, and you'd be able to support demonstration activities. I'll talk a little bit more about what each of those look like in just a minute. On the other hand, if you have a comprehensive safety action plan, if you can work through the worksheet that we have on the website that is your self-certification that includes the criteria required in order to be eligible for an implementation grant, if you have projects and strategies in that plan that you are ready to implement, then you can come in for an implementation grant. We also encourage anyone coming in for an implementation grant to also consider including supplemental planning activities and potentially demonstration activities in addition to implementation. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. So just a quick flag, the Notice of Funding Opportunity is on the website. You can read it there. There are a lot of great resources, including updated FAQs. We can receive technical questions until June 16th. Please note July 10th is the deadline. We are unable to accept any late applications. And again, there is the website address there. We've really worked hard to develop a lot of resources there, a lot of information, pointing you towards our own templates, application guides, FAQs, and also providing a lot of resources that'll answer some of the bigger questions, understanding there's a ton of great information out there around how to do planning, around how to make some of these choices around which projects and strategies you might choose to fund. So Safe Streets and Roads for All, I mentioned it, it's $5 billion. It's, that's $1 billion per year. This is our second year. We have at least 3 more funding rounds left. We are the sort of foundation of this program is the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan. So that is, that's going to be a core element either to support that planning process or using that plan in order to implement projects. So that's going to be a core element of this program. This program enables interventions, that will address and support the safe system approach. So that's safer people, safer roads, safer vehicles, safer speeds, and post-crash care. So really looking at all the ways that we can build in those redundancies to reduce serious injuries and fatalities on our roadways. In our last round, we were able to fund 511 communities. You can see here, we have an interactive map. I encourage you all to take a look. If you scroll across this map, it's going to give you information on each of these grants and what type of grant, where it was awarded, the amount, what kind of project, and a brief description. So you can see who's been funded across the country. We were able to fund 49 states and Puerto Rico. We're hoping to hit all 50 this time around. And you can see that there are 474 action plan grants and 37 implementation grants. I'll talk a little bit more about this in a second, but implementation grants are incredibly competitive, whereas there is a statutory requirement for 40% of the funding to go towards planning. And we've built out what that can entail so that it's really clear what those planning dollars can be used for. We're really looking to encourage folks to think about how we can use this program to develop great plans across the country to strengthen our approach to safety on the roadway, and also understanding that not only is there implementation dollars available here in this program, but there's also implementation dollars available in a lot of programs across the state, local, and federal level. So we were able to award $800 million last cycle. However, as I said, we weren't. We still have some carryover from the first round, and we are looking to be able to award that in this round. Couple of things: the grant range you can see here, 100K to 10 million for planning and demonstration grant. This is going to depend on the size of the community, the extent of some of the issues that might be dealt with. And then the implementation grant, 2.5 million up to 25. These are suggestions only, expectations. These are not limitations, but you should understand that these are reasonable expectations, and that range would vary on geographic coverage as well as the population size. Please note, we do expect to award 250 million for demonstration activities. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. This is in part because of the 40% requirement for planning, the rollover from the first round. So please just note. And again, 20% local match can be in-kind contributions. We have a whole worksheet on the website describing what local match can look like. There's a lot of ways to pull that together. And so I think, definitely don't want that to be seen as a barrier to be able to access this program. Really quickly, what are we looking for with a comprehensive safety action plan? These are the 8 principal components. We've got a lot of good information about what this looks like. You know, for the comprehensive safety action plan, we're looking for plans that have been updated. You know, in order to qualify for implementation, they would have been in the last 5 years. You know, if your plan is even 3 years old and you want to come in for implementation dollars, that's great. You can also, apply to be able to update your plan during that process. So just understand that you can be implementing, you can be also updating your comprehensive safety action plan. I'll talk a little bit more about it, but you can also be doing that supplemental planning and those demonstration activities as well, all in conjunction. So the supplemental planning and demonstration activities, this is, you know, thinking about how, for example, with supplemental planning, we're thinking about, you know, equity plans, thinking about lighting plans, you know, other ways that you can build out that comprehensive safety action plan, whether it's, you know, different multimodal plans, et cetera. These are ways, and there's great resources in order to understand what some of the availability are. But these are ways to build out your comprehensive safety action plan, build out your planning as a city or a county or an MPO, you know, all the eligible entities, tribal governments as well, in order to have even better information in identifying where your problems are and what the solutions may be to address them. Again, this can be happening in conjunction with implementation, or supplemental planning can be happening on its own. Demonstration activities, many of you are, I'm certain, very familiar with demonstration activities. These are a great tangible way to get people engaged with roadway safety and with what those changes can look like on the roadway. They're a low risk way to experiment, to see what's possible on the roadway, on the right of way. You know, and again, this is not only, you know, this is something that we can use to identify what is going to be the best approach to your specific context. We know that, you know, and this program is going to cover a lot of different communities, large, small, rural, urban, suburban, you know, with a lot of different issues to address. And so demonstration activities is a great way to see what's going to work best in your community before you pour concrete, before you really invest in that long-term construction. So, you know, one of the ways to sort of delineate between a demonstration activity versus implementation is, you know, with the demonstration activity, we're looking for either a series of, it can be quick builds, it could be behavioral or operational pilots. For example, is there an information campaign for seatbelt use or speed, et cetera? Is there an operational, you know, pilot that you can do to better understand EMS response to particular incidents? For example, there's also opportunities to do some MUTCD, engineering work, and others. So there's a lot that can happen within demonstration activities. We've got great information on it. We've done a whole webinar on demonstration activities. One of the things that we are looking for with that is that folks will be able to evaluate and assess, and there is information on what that looks like. We've got some great resources, and I'll try to share that in the chat in just a minute. But being able to measure and assess the results of your demonstration activities is going to be a really important part of the process. This is an example of a community that was awarded in our last round supplemental planning and demonstration. And so this is just to give you a sense of what it can look like. In this case, you know, it was building on an existing safety action plan, and it used a series of different pieces like data analysis and pilot testing. So the pilot testing would be considered the demonstration activity. Your intersection analysis and developing of a sideway safety and bus stop safety plan would be considered your supplemental planning. So this is a great example of a community that was funded. They submitted a, you know, great application and diving in deeper into understanding both what is the problem and what are the potential best solutions for addressing them. So here we have, what the assessment would look like and the evaluation. So we're going to be interested in understanding, if the approach is measuring the benefits of demonstration activities through that data collection and evaluation. Again, we have some guides on what that looks like. Again, we're looking to understand how the activities will be set up. And understanding that with a demonstration activity, which is again supporting the comprehensive safety action planning process, that you're really trying things out. It's short term. You're making assessments. You're looking towards, whether it's proven safety countermeasures that work, or other strategies that have been identified as having potential to make the roadway more safe. You can try that out on your roadway through demonstration activities. If it's throwing down some paint, if it's using plastic bollards, if it's operational, or a pilot study, this is a great opportunity to really both potentially engage community in the process, learn how to work across different sectors or departments within your entity, whether it's the county level, et cetera. Demonstration activities can be a really great way to organize around what future implementation will look like. And then, of course, we want to understand the benefits. This is going to be really important to see, what are we getting out of this investment, what would we potentially get out of making this a longer term investment as well. So, here are some examples. We've got the speed management pilots. What would you look for? You'd look at crash data, the roadway fatality, serious injury data, maybe vehicle speeds. And there's some other examples here of what those assessments might look like, including whether it's public input, there might be key stakeholder interviews, community meetings, you may take photos, and other ways that you would be gathering information to assess the effectiveness of the strategy. And again, one of the top goals of the program is to reduce those serious injuries and fatalities. So looking at crash data, looking at anything to do with fatality and serious injury data is going to be really critical. And on the other hand, and in conjunction with that, really understanding, what is the community impact and how are those roadway changes, how they're implicated and impacting and affecting the community that is around that right of way. So making sure that those things are being balanced, and that, that potentially that, that feedback loop is being strengthened. For implementation grants, really, to be very clear, again, they have to be the types of projects and strategies that can be supported by implementation grants must already be identified in a safety action plan. And those are the ones that can then be, that are then eligible for this program. So as I said before, and I will emphasize again, a lot of communities I know have done a tremendous amount of planning. A lot of folks have their complete street plans, their Vision Zero plans, other pieces of plans. And many of them, whether it's a comprehensive safety action plan or it's multiple plans that are cobbled together and meet the criteria and you're eligible for that implementation grant, we know communities are eager to implement, and we are very eager to be able to support that. I will reiterate the competitive nature of the funding. And as you saw with those funding ranges previously, when the infrastructure and the implementation grant dollars, we're only going to be able to fund so many based on, availability of funds. Last round, it was only 37 implementation grants, while on the other hand, we had 470 plus action plan grants. So I want you all to take that to heart and understand the availability and accessibility of the planning and demonstration grants versus the competitive nature of the implementation grants. Now, I would encourage folks who are ready to apply for implementation to apply for implementation, but to also consider the bundling opportunity of additionally being able to apply for whether it's updating your comprehensive safety action plan, whether it's adding to it through those supplemental planning dollars, whether it's a lighting plan or an equity analysis or multimodal plan, et cetera. And whether there are some opportunities, regardless of where the implementation activities might be prioritized, there might be other places where a demonstration activity would be a good fit, or these things can be happening, in conjunction, whether you're applying an infrastructure, like a road diet or something along those lines, and then also wanting to pilot some sort of community engagement piece around it. These are things that you can bundle together and that we'd like to see folks being able to think about the ways they can use this program to update their planning as much as possible. We also will reserve the ability to be able to, if, again, because of the competitive nature of the implementation grants, if we're unable to award an implementation grant, but there is a good application, a strong application for that supplemental planning and demonstration activities, we may be able to do funding part of that, do partial funding. And we were able to do that with some of the awards in this last round as well. Some of the implementation projects and strategies could look like safe routes to schools, transit safety projects. Very interested in EMS, particularly in rural areas where that response time is going to be critical to save lives. Looking at bicycle infrastructure, pedestrian safety, and other highway safety projects. These are just a few illustrative projects and strategies. Again, we want to make sure that all of this is tied to the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan. We want to make sure all of this is founded with a focus on saving lives and reducing serious injuries. Also, a core element of this program is the equity analysis and understanding that the disproportionate impact of this roadway crisis is affecting rural communities more, vulnerable road users like people walking, biking, rolling, communities of color, excuse me. And so we are looking, for that equity lens as well. Again, very excited about all the possibilities and the ways that we can make our roadways safer through this program. I will stop now, stop sharing, and looking forward to a little bit of Q&A.
Emily, thanks so much. Super helpful information. So a couple questions. Michael Bethune from Pittsburgh has a question. Do you want to come off mute and ask your question to Emily, Michael?
Sure. Good afternoon. So we have a multi-corridor neighborhood scale project ready to apply for under an implementation grant. However, we don't have a citywide safety action plan. Given our MPO has a qualifying regional safety action plan, could you please clarify whether a citywide safety action plan must be developed through supplementary and demonstration grant activities in unison, or should just a supplementary planning grant be used to develop a specific citywide safety action plan?
Okay, let me see if I can disentangle this and I understand correctly. I believe the answer would be if your MPO, which covers your area, has a plan in place and it identifies that project and strategy on your roadway that you are interested in applying for, then that plan would qualify, as long as it, again, we have a good checklist on the website, as long as it had the elements that are required in the self-certification process. You could see if that plan covers your region, your jurisdiction, and it includes that project or strategy within it, then you would be able to use that plan as an umbrella in order to be able to apply for that implementation grant. We would encourage you, again, to think about whether there would be added value, and I would shout out that there would be added value to also include some supplemental planning and demonstration activities in order to develop a comprehensive safety action plan for your jurisdiction, in addition to that MPO plan, if you saw value in that. Or at the very least, one of the things that we've been looking towards is how we can use this program to make sure you have the most up-to-date safety action plan. So we would encourage that application to come in with some clear coordination with the MPO. But again, I think the answer to your question, if I understood correctly, is yes.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. Jamie, did you have a question?
I did. Emily, I was wondering whether you would recommend to cities to also think about other US DOT programs that might have eligible activities that are similar to Safe Streets and Roads for All that may be slightly less competitive if they were not to be funded for implementation activities.
Yeah, I think that one of the ways that we would encourage folks are to think about TIP and STIP. And, I can share a little more specific information, but there's a lot of money that is happening, that moves through the formula funds to the state and working with the state to understand how we can be coordinating those funds as well as those local dollars. And then, of course, across federal programs, we have discretionary grant programs now, like RAISE, like infra, like reconnecting communities that might be a good fit. There's a lot of good information about, what notice of funding opportunities are open or will be open for those discretionary grant programs. We're also very excited and really thinking through, wanting to shift and understand how we can tap into some of those, formula funds as well in order to be building out these safety plans. One of the things that I will raise is for states that have, for example, there's the 15% vulnerable road user requirement in the bill, where if 15% or more of fatalities in a state are, are represented by vulnerable road users, people walking, biking, rolling, then there is a requirement that 15% of the state's, budget in that space in safety dollars is invested directly in that. And so we know that a lot of where that's happening is going to be at jurisdictional levels, at local levels. And so we encourage coordination there as well.
And Emily, I know you need to run, and we really appreciate. One last question from Sherry. Is HISIP going to open for direct application by municipalities?
No, I think that this is, and I can follow up with more information on this, but this is more of a coordination effort across.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Super helpful information. I know you have to run. So thank you again for joining us. And we will now turn to our mayor's panel.
Thanks, everyone.
So today we have several mayors who are here to talk to us about the lessons learned, the things that they did to have submitted successful Safe Streets and Roads for All proposals and received federal funding already. Today, we're joined by Frank Cownie, Mayor of Des Moines, Iowa, Jane Castor, Mayor of Tampa, Florida, and Martha Guerrero, Mayor of West Sacramento. Ryan Rousseau, who's the principal of Together Projects, will facilitate today's panel. Ryan has deep experience working in city transportation departments, so we're lucky to have him here today. He spent a good deal of time in Oakland, and then before that, spending 13 years in New York City Department of Transportation. So welcome both to Ryan and to our mayors, and thank you for being here. Ryan, the Zoom is yours.
Great. Thank you so much. It's really an honor and privilege to be able to facilitate an important conversation with winning cities who have gotten funding in the first round of Safe Streets and Roads for All, and having participated in our boot camp. There's lots of other cities excited to follow in your lead. So I do want to start with our first question with Mayor Castor, because Tampa is kind of the big dog, that rare implementation money, $20 million, which is a sizable grant, but also a very ambitious grant. It wants to, one, do quick, low-cost improvements like flashing beacons along your high-injury network, constructing new sidewalks and protected bike lanes near schools and along transit routes, and developing a pedestrian safety action and equity plan. So my question is, Tampa's been really aggressive in redesigning its streets and shown a willingness to lead. Can you discuss the importance of that and your approach to pushback when there is fear of change or disagreement with the direction for more multimodal, walkable, bikeable, safe streets?
Well, thanks, Ryan. You basically just covered why we received this grant and how we're using all of that funding for our quick builds. And I'll just go over real quick some of the things that we've done and that were in our application process. Segregated bike lanes, doing those in-house for short distances so that, again, it's a quick project that really changes a neighborhood. Our crosswalks to classrooms, so that kids can safely get to and from school. We have private partners that we work with, and we've done a number of schools in our community. Our four-way stops are the new traffic calming in the city of Tampa. They're everywhere, and that slows people down, makes our streets safer. We do have, everybody loves their acronyms. So our submission was called T-SAFE. And that's Tampa's systematic applications for equity. And the majority of the funding, 74% of what we've received, is going to our underserved communities. And I always say that I spent 31 years in law enforcement, and everything you handle is a crisis there. So I don't, the pushback is not really effective with me in the position that I'm in. And so when people complain about having segregated bike lanes in their neighborhood, we just do what's in the best interest of the community, and we do get the community's input. But then I love when everybody takes credit for it when the project is finally done. We are currently getting ready for what I anticipate will be somewhat of a tidal wave of the electric bike phenomena. We just did a grant program with that, and we're trying to get those those segregated bike lanes out there as quickly as we possibly can. And we have 24% of our roadway miles account for 73% of our fatalities. So we're doing all that we can to communicate that with our residents so that they understand why we're taking these actions in their neighborhood, but then also to work with the community hand in hand to see what it is that they want in their neighborhood that will make their street safer.
Great, thank you. It's a great mix of leadership and vision, and listening and understanding what the needs are. So turning next from the topic of leadership more to partnership, I want to ask Mayor Cownie, what's interesting in Des Moines is that the $1 million, sorry, it's not $20 million, but the $1 million planning grant that you were awarded was done in partnership with the Des Moines area, the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization. Can you discuss that partnership and how it was developed, both in applying, because the USDOT did encourage these types of municipal partnerships, organizational partnerships, and now that you're going forward, how's it going to work with you working together with your MPO?
Well, thank you for the question, and I will remark on your little miss. We would like to have had the $20 million grant, but we only got one. So congratulations to Tampa on the implementation. Look forward to seeing how that comes out. But quickly, it's important for us to start with the ethics of our whole region, and of having a comprehensive safety action plan. Basically, we're calling it a Vision Zero plan. Equity is certainly so important. We believe that everyone has the right to move safely in their communities. System designers and policymakers share the responsibility for safe systems for travel, and we're working on that through our MPO in our region. We think it's critical to identify the high injury network of streets and proactively remediate, all the issues, not just reacting, when there's a fatal crash. We need to proactively look at it and try to find solutions. So obviously, we know people make mistakes. And so the road system and related policies and signage and everything else should be designed to ensure those inevitable mistakes don't result in severe injuries or fatalities. Central Iowa's project, was again a $1 million grant. The grant will be used to develop a comprehensive safety action plan, which is basically our Vision Zero plan. Our Safe Streets for America application was made jointly, with our Metropolitan MPO and our Central Iowa Regional Transportation Alliance group. Each of us will have our own plans, but the plans will be complementary to each other, as we have highways in Central Iowa that come through our whole region and is part of what connects us all. Additionally, the city of Des Moines, we've been developing our own Vision Zero plan, which we essentially call Move DSM. We were encouraged to apply jointly. We think that it's a good idea. Again, all of us working together. We have, I think applying jointly makes our application more competitive, around the country, as again, we're working together and showing that we can right here in the heart of America, and demonstrate that resulting plans would be cohesive regionally and therefore more effective. And, we're trying to, look at collecting our responses, now from all of our representatives, and we'll be selecting, consultants this summer to work on this, and a planning process that will place, a heavy emphasis on public engagement and review of best practices and look at what others are doing. Crash data analysis. We've done a lot of that in Des Moines already, and we've identified what we think are 4 most significant crash areas and are putting together a plan for Des Moines. And, we need to identify those countermeasures that can be taken and develop an implementation plan and strategy and programs, and develop a visualization of this Vision Zero toolkit, and develop a comprehensive safety action plan that goes around with all of that. So we're really looking forward to working together, and I'll quickly pass it on to our next speaker.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Mayor Cownie. And as we go from east to the center to the west, just like the sunrise to the sunset, here we are heading to California. And I want to ask Mayor Guerrero from West Sacramento, you've also received a planning grant to develop a safety action plan. Could you discuss the background of this plan? And then specifically, we've heard from USDOT this emphasis on equity because we have inequitable outcomes in traffic fatalities and severe injuries. Could you also talk about how the city plans to prioritize equity in its planning process?
Thank you, Ryan. And it looks like I received the smallest grant, $280,000, of which we will be matching that $70,000 with our own general funds to improve roadway safety. So the city's application was successful because it incorporated all the plan elements. And we've established our 2021 Mobility Action Plan, and our Sidewalks and Transportation Equity Program showed that the city is capable of innovative strategies, data-driven decision-making, and inclusive, equity-focused outreach. At its core, our Mobility Action Plan is all about ensuring the community members have a diversity of choices in getting around the city and outside, and helping prioritize local investments that offer safe, affordable, convenient, and sustainable transportation options. So we do have a robust outreach plan to our community, and our goal is to meet their expectations moving forward, because we will work from the progress we have made in establishing our Mobility Action Plan, which continues to be a live document. We will gather more data from this planning effort, and it will, the Sidewalk Transportation Equity Program is a grant we received from Caltrans in 2022. For a little bit of background about that, we're going to focus on Sacramento Avenue, which is our target because it is a designated historically disadvantaged community that predates before the city was incorporated in 1987. So the city's streets existed, prior to that, when it was under Yolo County, the oldest part of our community. And as the city grew, the growth overlooked any rehabilitation needs in this area. So the city administration and council want to address this. And it would, this safety action plan will allow us to identify dangerous locations. We have the data when we submitted our application, situations and behaviors in the street system. And it will help us to prioritize the safety improvements so that we can make it effective. We will be reaching out to those individuals historically that have been living in this area, primarily the Russian, Ukrainian, and Hispanic population. So it will be non-English speakers that we are going to be directing our outreach to. We will also be going to locations where they socialize. So the community settings, which can be the churches and any other community-based organizations that are being developed that currently are happening right now. So since our work will have a strong focus on West Sacramento's disadvantaged and environmental justice communities, we're going to be maintaining that targeted outreach, which as we have been developing this and sharing it with the U.S. Department of Transportation, it looks like we're on the right track, getting some nods of approval. And we hope to return to the Safe Streets and Roads for All program after our plan is complete to leverage federal funds for the implementation of the safety measures we identify as part of the planning grant.
Great, wonderful. Sounds like you've got some great equity best practices. And sort of staying on the topic of equity, I wanted to ask Mayor Castor, the supplemental planning activities in your implementation grant, as I mentioned, include the development of a pedestrian and equity action plan. Many cities may be wondering how USDOT's focus on equity applies to them. So for Tampa, what is the inequity in traffic safety and how are you planning to approach it with your pedestrian safety action and equity plan?
Well, as I said before, 74% of the funding is going to be used in our underserved communities, and many of those roadways that I described, 23% that account for 24% that account for 73% of our fatalities and significant injury accidents are also in those underserved communities. And so that's where we're focusing this funding to ensure that we're making our roadways, our streets safe for everyone, for the motoring public, but specifically for biking, pedestrian, and other modes of the rolling population, as it was described, is critically important in our underserved communities, because that's where we're seeing a lot of these high injury and fatalities as well. So not just from addressing on the street level, but also lighting, looking at the engineering of intersections, which quite often contributes to the number of accidents and the higher injury and fatality intersections and roadways as well. So we're looking at it from a holistic view, and we do have all of those, the plans that we had already produced and we're putting into action. I think one of the critical takeaways from this presentation for everybody to hear, if you haven't heard it yet or it hasn't sunk in, is that you've got to have your plans ready to go and that you have the ability to implement them quickly, and that they are going to be effective in making your roadways safer. And so that clearly is our focus here in Tampa, and we're making great progress so far.
Yeah, thank you for reinforcing that message. We've heard it a lot, and you heard it before, that everyone wants the implementation, the backhoes and the shovels. That's going to be competitive funding. But to get that funding, to compete, you need to have done the planning, and there's no excuse to not do the planning given the amount of support that USDOT is offering up with these planning and demonstration grants. And with the demonstration,
that is so true. I sing the praise. Has been a great partner for us. We're also a Bloomberg city, and so we have our overarching transit plan. We have our safety equity plans. So we've had the Bloomberg transportation group review all of those plans as well, and they've just been incredible, as we heard from one of the Bloomberg representatives earlier. They've been a great partner, and they've been very, very helpful, not only in looking at what we have planned, but also helping us in putting that into a grant format that
Yeah.
is, has been very successful.
Great, wonderful. I want to wrap up with a question to each, Mayor County and Mayor Guerrero. I think we're in a moment where trust between communities and governments are being challenged and stressed. There's a great phrase in local government that, every mayor is the pothole mayor, and that's like a way people visibly see whether or not they should trust their local government. But with our national traffic fatality and injury crisis, we're really seeing and hoping that every mayor should be the safety mayor. How do you see this work, each of you, as being a pillar in building trust between communities and their government? Why don't we start with you, Mayor Guerrero, and then have Mayor County finish it up?
Thank you, Ryan. I entirely agree with all the points you've made. It is challenging as mayors to be able to demonstrate that the process has integrity and that we are working on implementing what they desire. So the city has established a task force of experts, and it will include participants who have expertise, but also the engagement to be able to work collaboratively with the public to make sure that the recommendations incorporated into every street project, and before they're incorporated, they're reviewed to all of our non-English speaking populations, and to just accommodate that process, whether it be through visiting the churches or making sure that it's implemented in their own language, and being very sensitive to the concerns that we've heard in the past, and affirming them, just acknowledging that we haven't done this in the past. I think that helps to bring some level of healing and trust, but also say, moving forward, you're a priority. We're going to make this change happen.
Great, thank you. And Mayor County?
It's been an interesting process, and we are trying to work very closely with our neighbors in surrounding communities, but also within our neighborhoods right here in Des Moines. We look at the problems. We have looked at all the areas where we would call our high injury corridors in and around Des Moines, and we have done a lot of analysis and looked back in for instance, the 2016 to 2020 timeframe. We saw that essentially 76 people died and 453 were seriously injured during that time frame. And we're trying to look at it and look at a number of the areas, and we're even looking at our sidewalks, make sure they're ADA compliant and at the crossings, and hopefully implementing ways that even the blind can get across and know what the signals are saying, and so they'll digitally and audially be able to hear whether or not it's safe to cross. But as we look at it, our plan here in Des Moines is essentially, looking at 4 high incident, high injury corridors. And these are highways that connect state highways and federal highways that connect us north and south and east and west, and that also run through our city and our city streets. And we note that these highways pass through historically disadvantaged parts of our community. And we want to make sure that everybody is represented. And we do that in every section of our city and our budget and planning. As we put together a plan, we go to neighborhoods, we talk to neighborhoods, we talk about our budget, we talk about how we're spending our money. We are upgrading, as it was pointed out earlier, sometimes the potholes are what a lot of people throw at us that are complaining about city government and that we're not doing our part. But we look at that very closely. We've got $500 million that we're spending on redoing our inner city streets. But these corridors that are these high injury corridors, we're looking at everything from going from 3 lanes to 2 lanes to turn lanes to setting sidewalks back away to protect pedestrians. We're looking at every possibility and throwing that into our plan. But we're doing that as we look at our data, but we're also presenting it to our citizens and getting their feedback and their input and hopefully their support. And I think that's important that we all do that.
Fantastic. Well, we've certainly appreciate the leadership that each of your cities, that you've shown in leading each of your cities, and then to share your limited time with all the cities we have attending today to learn from your successes, whether it be $250,000 or 20 million. There's a bunch of folks here who hope to follow in your paths. So I'll turn it back to Michelle, see if we had any questions or anything else we want to do before we wrap things up.
Thank you all for those insights. Any last questions for our mayors or for Ryan? If not, we will thank them and very much appreciate your taking the time and giving us your lessons and insights about how to be successful in this. So thank you all, mayors, and thank you, Ryan. So
Michelle, if you don't mind, I might just jump in for a second, because I've been putting lots and lots of links in the chat, and I know it can be overwhelming to follow. And so what I thought might be helpful for folks is just a little bit of a tutorial on our program site and where you can find these different resources. And so I'm just going to share my screen and forgive that I have 9 million tabs open. One of the first things that we wanted to plug on here is that the registrations are open for the boot camp, the technical assistance boot camp that we're running in coordination with the National League of Cities. And these are for cities of populations of 150,000 or less to get detailed technical assistance throughout the entire process of putting together a grant application, everything from community engagement to how to build a good data narrative to what are the federal government's priorities and how do you make sure that you're addressing those in your application. So sort of the nuts and bolts. And so I encourage all cities who fit that bill, are 150,000 or less, to check out these boot camps. We're going to be running 5 different ones on rail programs, on broadband, on neighborhood access and equity grant program, which is a lot like Reconnecting Communities, and the Bridge Investment Program. So wanted to make you guys aware of that upcoming deadline, May 31st, to apply for the boot camp. And then if you want to go to resources, that's where we have all of the great tools that we've been having experts help us put together. We also have webinar recordings of our past sessions. So I've shared in the chat today 5 winning strategies on planning and demonstration grants for Safe Streets and Roads for All and tackling inequity. We also have those applications that we talked about before that were successful. We have both a summary of the applications you'll see here, and then the actual applications themselves that you can click on. Going back, we also have the bootcamp materials, those boot camps I was just talking about, where that are open to cities of 150,000 or less. We've brought over the materials from those on Safe Streets and Roads for All. Ryan and NACTO have been contributing to those, as have a bunch of our other partners, on how to budget for these programs. And so I encourage you all to check out the bootcamp resources. And again, you can find those here, and you can always filter by what you're looking for. So just anytime you're looking for things that can help you enhance your application, I would really just encourage you to bookmark our website and see what we have. Sorry, Michelle, for the interruption. I'm passing it back to you.
and Michelle, I wanted to clarify something. I've had one mayor called me to ask the question and to confirm cities can in fact apply directly for this grant. Something was said earlier that implied it had to go through the states, I believe. So I wanted to clarify that.
I think that Emily was replying to the question about HSIP. HTIP, she was saying cities have to work collaboratively, but for Safe Streets and Roads for All, they are eligible applicants.
Exactly. That's the clarification, right?
Excellent. All clear. Thank you, Jamie. Super helpful to have that tutorial. And so just a reminder, May 31st is the date for this registration for the new boot camps that Jamie spotlighted. These are led by the National League of Cities. We also want to make sure you know about our next local infrastructure hub sessions. We have one tomorrow, May 10th at 2 p.m. This session will be focused on accessing funding under the bipartisan infrastructure law for broadband infrastructure, something we know is critical to all communities. We also will be having another session focused on workforce. That's to May 16th. It's the workforce provisions under the infrastructure law. We're going to be sharing more on that soon, but that's Tuesday, May 16th. And as always, as Jamie highlighted, you can find so much about our sessions, resources. If you've missed something and want to learn more about it, it's all on localinfrastructurehub.org. So we appreciate all of you joining us for today and look forward to seeing you.
We're going to run a short poll.
Oh,
yep.
Let's have the short
Thanks.
poll first. Apologies. Always want to make sure we get your feedback on these sessions so we can improve them. So hope you will complete that poll and then we will wrap it up. Thank you again, everyone.